Hi, it's Dwyer. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. BettingAngle.us, a free site. Today is Friday, November 5th, 2021. Let's talk about the Canelo fight. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own, right? In my favorites folder right now, I have a couple of videos. They're from a couple of great sites, FightHype.com, also Fight Hub TV. They are excellent sites, and they have tracked down a lot of trainers. And the trainers, of course, are opining on the question that's asked. Who's going to win? Saul Alvarez or Caleb Plant? Now, for our purposes, that's the wrong question. Please understand what the right question is. It's not who's going to win the fight. That's the wrong question. The right question is, what's the proper betting play on this fight? Which guy's the better betting play? Because understand, these guys are not going off at anything close to even money, right? You're getting a plus 550 right now on Caleb Plant. What we should be hearing from the trainers is whether, if these guys fought 6.5 times, whether Caleb Plant would win more than once. Let me just point out that I personally feel that the fight's a 50-50 toss-up. In my earlier videos, I should have mentioned, and it's just oversight on my part, the Erislandy Lara Saul Alvarez fight. I don't know how many movers we need to see Canelo have problems against before we start to ask the question, and how many older fighters Canelo has to face before we ask the question of whether Canelo can correct the problems against movers, and whether with younger legs in front of him, not a guy in his 30s, but a guy in his 20s, whether Canelo will be able to keep up. Right? Understand, Canelo's matchmaker has done a great job putting him in against older fighters like Danny Jacobs. By the way, Jacobs fought Gabe Rosado, may have lost that fight. Rosado gave him the business. By the way, I want people to keep an eye on Rosado, who's having a second career here. Right? Understand, too, Golovkin, after Canelo, fights Derevianchenko and looked a bit old, didn't he? Right? Looked like he was having problems with Derevianchenko's youth. Understand, too, Canelo fights Kovalev, right? And we know that Eleider Alvarez had roughed up Kovalev, who looked like he had run out of stamina in the middle of that fight. Right? So while Canelo is fighting big names, is he fighting them at the right time? So for all these videos where a boxing trainer says, I think Canelo's going to win, I want you to listen deeply to the video, because often that superstar trainer is going to say, I expect Caleb Plant to win the early rounds, but I'm expecting Canelo to catch him in round 8, round 9, round 10. Now, if you're a gambler and if you're looking at a plus 550, you're thinking, oh, this guy thinks that my plus 550 guy is going to win the early part of the fight. At that point, you got to start feeling fortunate. Now, I don't dispute that Canelo is the cash cow, as John David Jackson put it, right? I'm sure right now there's a judge thinking, hey, I get to score the Canelo fight, right? I'm sure if Canelo comes within 2 feet of Caleb Plant on a punch, the crowd, likely to be a Canelo crowd, is going to go crazy, right? Let's give Canelo a 2-round advantage at the start of the fight, right? Let's face it. The only other cash cows in the sport, in the area code of Canelo, are probably whoever the heavyweight champ is. Let's face it, that's a unique division, right? Anthony Joshua, whether he's champ or not. Manny Pacquiao, if he comes back, right? There are very few guys who can fill an arena like Saul Alvarez. He's going to have a 2-round advantage. Is he still going to have that 2-round advantage at the start of the 3rd round? Folks, by then, the fight might be tied. Right? So, if you're a gambler, just figure out. You're not interested in who wins the fight because you can play games with hedges. Right? What you're interested in is the pace of the fight and when superstar trainers, and again, just refer to the videos that I have listed in my favorites folder here. When superstar trainers are telling you, yeah, I expect Canelo to start slow. When Al Bernstein, the Hall of Fame announcer, is telling you, yeah, Canelo takes some rounds off. You have to be thinking, wow, there's a shot here that a plus 550 underdog might win this fight by decision. That there might be urgency late in the fight for Canelo to get a stoppage. What I want people to also think about is the fact that boxing's an expectation game. Now, Canelo is getting some input from future Hall of Famer Andre Ward. Right? I want people to remember that when Andre Ward, in the Bay Area, I'm in the Bay Area, right? When Andre Ward fought Mikhail Kessler, Ward was the underdog in his own backyard. Right? This is a guy who would go on to retire unbeaten. He was an underdog. There's an interview here online of Teofimo Lopez talking about how when he fought Lomachenko, he was an underdog. Recently we saw a heavyweight title fight involving Anthony Joshua, where his opponent Usyk was a better than 2-1 underdog. Don't get too carried away by odds. I would rather focus, quite frankly, on fight styles. I can just tell you without hesitation that in my mind, Caleb Plant has the better legs. Right? I could also tell you, in my mind, Canelo, who has a high guard. It's a high guard. He has his hands up here. Right? He's not cutting corners with an Archie Moore, hold your hands low guard. No, he has his hands up here, folks. That tires you out. Right? When you're jumping around and you're trying to catch a guy who moves better than you, and you're keeping your hands up and you're moving around, that tires your hands out. I believe stamina is going to be a big concern for this fight. Finally, let me say this too. A lot of people, in commenting on this fight, have said, hey, Caleb Plant hasn't fought anybody. Right? He doesn't have the resume that Canelo has. And he doesn't. But let's understand, I believe Caleb Plant was an Olympic alternate. Understand that Caleb Plant has sparred with people like Errol Spence, right? I feel that we're overlooking the fact that in addition to having a future Hall of Famer, Andre Ward, assisting him in his preparation, that this is a guy who outside the ring, outside of scheduled fights, has been in the ring with some excellent opposition. Let me close by saying, this is the fight Caleb Plant has dreamt about. Caleb Plant has wanted Canelo for a long time. Right? I believe one of the reasons is because the styles match up well. Right? Caleb Plant's going to be the mover. Canelo's going to be the stalker. right? Both guys tire in fights, but Caleb Plant is accustomed to being stalked. Plant also has, perhaps, I'll leave it up to you, a hand speed advantage. Right? Plant also knows that whether it's Kovalev or whether it's Erislandy Lara, Canelo has had a problem with movers. I believe there's also a perception problem. We saw Billy Joe Saunders against Canelo, and Canelo caught up with him in the second half of the fight. People tend to believe the future is going to mirror the past. Right? But understand, Billy Joe, in my opinion, gave that fight away. Right? Why did Billy start so slow? Why would a mover against a puncher be bent over the pocket? Understand, too, Canelo is measuring that uppercut. He throws it a few times in the fight. Why would Billy Joe be so close to Canelo? Right? Billy Joe's a southpaw. He fought this fight very differently than he fought against David Lemieux. Why didn't he fight the Lemieux fight against Saul Alvarez? I don't think we can assume that Caleb Plant is going to make those mistakes. I think Caleb Plant is going to be wise enough to stay outside, just touch Canelo. He doesn't have to hurt Canelo. Right? The mover just has to show the judges, I'm able to move where I want, and I can touch this guy when I want. Right? And of course, understand, with a hair trigger left hook, Caleb Plant might be able to drop Canelo like he dropped Jose Uzcategui. Let me add another comment. I mentioned Jose Uzcategui, and I said, this guy pursues you. Just to show that Caleb Plant has been in against a guy who thought he was the heavier hitter and who spent almost all of the fight on his front foot trying to track down Caleb Plant. And people said, hey, you're comparing Canelo to Uzcategui. Right? Well, no, I'm comparing Uzcategui's foot speed to Canelo's foot speed. I'm not sure if Canelo has faster foot speed than Uzcategui. In other words, you're dealing with great footwork by Caleb Plant. This might be the kind of fight where Caleb Plant's already seen a guy coming forward the way Canelo comes forward. Also, I believe Canelo, like Floyd Mayweather, has benefited from the fact that he's the smaller guy in fights. Right? Bigger men try to be hyper-aggressive. They look at Canelo and they think, oh, come on, this guy is up at 168. You got to be kidding me. Right? They overlook the fact that Canelo's thick. Right? You see a smaller guy and you think, I can get him out of here. Well, now Canelo's been around 168. I don't believe Caleb Plant has to try to get him out of there. Caleb Plant just has to stick and move. Stick and move. Make the fight a boring fight. Stick and move. Not have Canelo get close enough to him. Force Canelo to get out of his envelope. When's the last time we've seen that? The first Golovkin fight, where Canelo actually has to move faster than he wants to. By the way, does anyone remember how tired Canelo was in that first Golovkin fight? Force Canelo to move faster than he wants to. Right? If he can't catch you when he's moving fast for him, then you know he's going to be in trouble when he slows down. Folks, this is, in my opinion, a 50-50 fight. I wouldn't have been surprised because of the resume, because of the reputation, if Canelo was a minus 150. Right? I wouldn't have been surprised. I'm absolutely shocked at the current odds. You should not be getting a plus 550 on Caleb Plant. Right? The bet I like is Caleb Plant to win the fight, even with Canelo entering the ring, in my opinion, with a 2-round advantage, since he's Mr. Box Office. Right? I like Caleb Plant to win the fight. I'll hedge the play with Canelo by stoppage. As you listen to the superstar trainers talk about the fight, just think to yourself, if Caleb Plant wins the early rounds, and folks are expecting Canelo to get a stoppage in rounds 8, 9, or 10, what happens if he doesn't get the stoppage? Let's say he doesn't get the stoppage in round 8. Then you're in round 9 of a fight where Canelo has lost the early rounds and might need a stoppage to win the fight. But I need for you to understand the risk involved. The hedge is Canelo by stoppage. The main bet, the swing for the fences bet, is Caleb Plant at plus 550 to win the fight. But I need for you to understand the risk involved. If this fight goes the distance, and the overwhelming favorite, the box office cash cow, wins by decision, you lose it all. This is gambling. That's the risk involved. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section of this video. I also hope you enjoy the fight. Thanks for stopping by.